anti-Semitism. Make no mistake, we should not give credence, credibility, or attention to hateful people. And ladies and gentlemen, make no mistake, the Republican Party and the most pro-Israel president in the history of the United States will continue to fight anti-Semitism and protect the Jewish people and stand firmly and decisively with Israel. Ladies and gentlemen, may God bless you all, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you all very much. God bless. Thank you.
Please welcome the co-founder of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, Johnny Moore.
My name is Johnny Moore, and I am a Christian Zionist. I want to thank you for having me here tonight. I know inviting a reverend for Shabbat is a little unorthodox, pun intended. I promise, though, I brought my own wine. Actually, I'm a Baptist, so I brought grape juice. But I'm also not going to try to turn your water into anything tonight. I also promise, as an evangelical Christian, to not try to convert anyone to anything unless you're a Democrat, and then all bets are off. Actually, if anything, I'm here to thank you as the Jewish community for converting us. Because every blessing in my Christian life is the byproduct of your Jewish religion, your culture, your history, and your values. It's a real honor tonight to share this evening with you, to break bread on Shabbat with friends who've become like family, at a moment when both our communities face a choice between courage and comfort, between standing firm and standing down. Tonight, we read Lech Lecha, go forth. Two words that changed history. God tells Abraham, leave everything you know and everyone you trust, every comfort you possess. Go to a land that I will show you. And Abraham just went. No GPS, no guarantee, no backup plan, just faith and God. The audacity to believe that God's promises are strong enough to get him where he needed to go. As Rabbi Sachs reminds us, Abraham is influence without power. He ruled no empire. He commanded no great army. He performed no miracles. He proclaimed no prophecy. And yet he changed the world because he was prepared to be different. And I stand before you tonight as a Christian reading a Jewish text. And I'm struck by how precisely these ancient words speak to our present moment. Lech Lecha isn't just Abraham's story, it's our story. It's the story of every Jew who refused to cower to anti-Semitism. The story of every Zionist who said next year in Jerusalem when it seemed impossible. The story of evangelicals like myself, of Christian Zionists who decided that silence in the face of evil is never an option. See, going forth means leaving comfort, the comfort of what everyone thinks, to embrace the conviction of what God actually says. It means to stand with Israel even if the UN vote is 150-1. It means calling evil by its name when the world calls it context. It means saying never again and actually meaning it when it costs you something. You know, I'm proud to be an evangelical for many reasons, but especially for this. When the world told us to quiet down about Israel, we went forth and we shouted louder. When October 7th happened, and the equivocators began their gymnastics, they're still doing it, by the way, we went forth immediately, unequivocally, and unapologetically. And thank God we have a president of the United States who understands lecha. When everyone said the embassy couldn't be moved to Jerusalem, President Trump said, "Watch me." When the foreign policy establishment said peace was impossible, he delivered the Abraham Accords. When Iran menaced the entire region and the world, he acted with clarity and with strength. When Iran's nuclear facilities stood there, they ended up obliterated, a failed terrorist regime humiliated. That's what lecha looks like when the world's most powerful nation chooses moral courage over conventional wisdom. Our president, he doesn't fret about the cocktail party circuit where I live in Washington, D.C. He just gets the job done every single time. But you know, God doesn't just tell us to go. He also promises to bless us along the way. Genesis 12:3, which you read this weekend, is a verse that every evangelical knows by heart. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. This is not poetry. It's theology. We don't stand with Israel because it's convenient. Often it isn't. We don't stand with Israel because it's easy. Rarely is it. We stand out of conviction because your book is our book. Your heroes are our heroes, and your values are our values. The equation is really quite simple. When America blesses Israel and remains the best home for the Jews outside of Israel itself, then America will be blessed. The U.S.-Israel partnership, it's not only about America's interests, it's the secret to our success. So what does going forth mean for us tonight? First, it means when anti-Semitism surges on campuses, we go forth together, defending Jewish students, demanding accountability, refusing to let hatred infect a generation. We stop taking universities at their word. We stop giving. We demand accountability and change. It also means that when the UN becomes a weapon against Israel, that we go forth together. We expose the hypocrisy. We defund the dysfunction. Because for too long, American taxpayers have subsidized a system that has become the world's engine for white-collar anti-Semitism under the profane banner of humanitarianism. Enough is enough. And I have to say, this is personal to me. Because this summer, the UN was letting food rot in Gaza. So we went forth through the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. We delivered nearly 200 million meals to the people of Gaza. Hamas didn't steal one truck. And when those UN trucks stalled, and those bureaucrats found microphones faster than solutions, revealing their secret hatred, not only for all the Jews in the world, but also America. We just kept feeding people every single day. We didn't ask permission, we didn't wait for approval, and we certainly didn't care one bit what the Secretary General of the United Nations thought. Because Hamas was stealing food from children, so we fed them. And I have to tell you, our work was not without a cost. We lost 12 brave local Gazan aid workers. We lost countless bits and pieces of reputations garnered over a lifetime because of profane lies. We had several Americans that were injured by Hamas grenades. My own family faced threats. Some continue to this day. But when terrorists and their enablers oppose you, it means you're doing the right thing. Because GHF not only saved lives, it helped create the conditions for the hostages to come home and for victory over terror to draw closer. And also, I should say that when universities buckle, some institutions stand firm. I'm honored to be a part of Pepperdine University's unwavering stand against anti-Semitism. This semester, we launched a new master's degree in Middle East policy studies in Washington, D.C., with not a dime of foreign funding and full scholarships to attract the best students. And by the way, in our Christian community, where anti-Semitism wasn't tolerated in the first place. I'm proud to be here tonight and to tell you that our Christian university, the highest ranked Protestant school in America, that the majority of our first cohort of Middle East Studies students are Jewish students, because that's what friendship looks like in practice. Going forth is the 750,000 evangelical Christians that give every single year to help the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews help the people of Israel all over the world. You know, Abraham didn't know where he was going, but he knew who was sending him. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we know both. We know where we're going, toward an America that leads from strength, not apology. An America where our flag means something, and our word counts for something, and our values aren't for sale. An America where Israel can rest in its security, where Jewish students can wear their kippah without fear, where Jerusalem remains undivided and recognized as Israel's eternal capital. And we also know who sends us. It's the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The God who keeps his promises. The God who chose a people and gave them a land and told the rest of us that how we treat them will determine how we're treated and how we're remembered. Senator Scott knows this. Senator Graham knows this. And President Trump has proven again and again that he knows it too, better than anyone. That's why America is back. That's why Israel's enemies are on their heels. That's why our friends sleep better at night and our enemies fear to close their eyes. So, on this Shabbat, as you read about Abraham's courage, remember, his courage is our inheritance. We didn't choose to be born in a time when going forth would be required as it is today, but here we are. The call has already come. The only question is whether we'll answer. But I'm here to tell you tonight that evangelicals have answered the call. We've already gone forth. We will not turn back. 700 million of us worldwide. So let's go forth together. Because here's what I can promise you. You will never be alone with us around. Never afraid, never apologetic. We will be proud Christians and proud Jews, staring down the darkness, daring evil to try us, as we light candles from here to Tel Aviv and from Washington to Jerusalem, with the light that has guided the world since creation. Together, unstoppable, faithful to God and to each other. So may God bless America. May God bless Israel. May God bless this partnership with no force on earth will break. Shabbat Shalom.
Please welcome United States Senator from Florida, Rick Scott.
Well, first off and most important, I want to thank everybody for all your support. I've had two governor's races and two Senate races, and so many people in this room have been part of those elections, so I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. And thanks for electing Republicans. First, I want to recognize my wife. I think she's right out here in front of us. She's put up with all these races, all the things I've tried in my life. She's been a great partner. Now, let's remember last year. Last year, when I spoke here, we talked about the hostages who were still being held captive by Hamas. That was a tough time. Thank God they're free. Thank God they're home. And thank you to the RJC for all you did, that you kept up the pressure for their release. So congratulations. As soon as October 7th happened, I put a poster up in front of my office that had of all the hostages. And I wanted every person that walked into my office to see exactly what Hamas was doing. The faces of the the faces of these individuals, of these Hamas terrorists who are holding. We tweet a story out every day about a hostage. We didn't want anybody ever to forget what happened. Too many people want the world to forget what happened and the terror that Hamas created, not Israel. I'm so glad that today we can meet knowing that President Trump busted his butt and got them home, and they are free. I want to thank Matt Brooks and Norm Coleman for their relentless efforts leading the RJC, and they've done a great job. From the first time I came here, this has gotten to be a bigger and bigger group every year. Now, in my lifetime, I've never seen so much anti-Semitism as we've seen the last 2 years. It's tough. Thank God we have President Trump in the White House, but there are still severe pockets of anti-Semitism across the country that have to be stamped out. The RJC has been vital for helping fight back by helping elect great candidates who will support our Jewish communities and our great ally, the only democracy in the Middle East, Israel. Now I want to go home. I want to thank Matt Bogdanoff, who handles Florida for the RJC. So if you'll be a big round to all the Floridians to thank Matt. Now, we all know elections matter, right? But in my lifetime, I cannot think of an election that was more consequential than last November. Think about it. Only because President Trump is president, Iran has been sidelined, the hostages who were held for 2 years have been freed. We are on a path, and hopefully we'll continue down a path to peace for Israel. Our southern border is secure. Poorly run cities like Washington, D.C. are finally safe. Residents can walk around. Families have more rights than criminals and the homeless. When I got to D.C., especially during the Biden administration, there were just homeless shelters everywhere. Now, we could stand here all night, and I could list all the great things that have happened since President Trump took office just a little over 9 months ago. But think about it. What if he didn't win? Iran would have a nuclear weapon. Terrorists would be trying to wipe Israel off the face of the earth. Jewish students wouldn't be able to be safe at their college campuses. Drugs, terrorists, and illegals would be flooding across their border just like they did during the Biden administration. Law enforcement would be villainized while racist DEI policy would be running our federal government under Harris. Now, I know we're all thankful that President Trump is back in the White House because think of the contrast of what our country could have been if Harris had won. But there is still severe anti-Semitism. And there are socialist candidates across our country on the cusp of potentially leading some of our nation's biggest cities. Just look at New York City, where voters are about to elect a radical socialist who is anti-Semitic, anti-police, and anti-capitalism in New York City. Mandamia said, quote, "We have to make it clear that when the boots of the NYPD is on your neck, it's been laced by the IDF." Think about that statement. He's saying that Israel and our law enforcement are fueling violence in our great country. It's not just anti-Semitic, anti-police. Just like socialism, it's evil and it's idiotic. Now think about it. When I was growing up, New York City represented the American dream, a city where anything was possible. You wanted to move to New York City to live the dream of this country. Now it's become the city where Jewish students are attacked, capitalism is shunned, and people like Mandami are celebrated. New York City has benefited from the best system in the world, capitalism. now is villainized, capitalism is villainized by Mandami and Democrats all across this country. But think about it, socialism isn't new. It's an old, barbaric, discredited idea that's failed every time it's been tried. Look at my state. We have people from Cuba and Venezuela, those families have fled those countries and the brutal regimes that only stayed in power through death and destruction. And unfortunately, over the course of history, we continue to see anti-Semitism pop up all over the world, but even in our country. And that's why groups like the RJC, AIPAC, and the U.S. Holocaust Museum are so important in the collective fight for the Jewish people and the support of Israel. But it's clear, the more success President Trump has and Republicans have, the more extreme the Democrats go to embrace the most radical candidates and their policies. Right now, government is shut down in Washington, D.C. over one reason. Chuck Schumer and the Democrats want to give benefits, your tax dollars, to illegals. They want to make sure that your tax dollars pay for trans surgeries and abortion. Our military, TSA workers, FAA aren't getting paid. Democrats are putting illegals, abortion, and trans surgeries above all these hard-working federal workers. Now, despite the fact that we're not getting paid, all these individuals getting paid? Guess who is getting paid? Chuck Schumer, the Democrats, all of Congress is getting paid. It's so messed up. Since I got to the Senate, I've had a bill, no budget, no pay. But who blocks it? Chuck Schumer and the Democrats. We shouldn't get paid if we don't do our job. I'm a business guy. I never got paid if I didn't do my job. We didn't pay people that didn't show up to work. So we have to get the budget done. But this is today's Democrat Party. And it's actually the future of the Democrat Party. It's funded by people like George Soros and other socialist, anti-Semitic millionaires and billionaires. These camps run on, quote, free everything. It sounds really nice to everybody, but it has never worked. And the crazy thing is that Democrats like Gavin Newsom and Mandami lie about how they grew up. They grew up that they struggled. They struggled so they can be relatable. But guess what? They're both elites who grew up wealthy. I actually grew up poor. I actually lived in public housing. I didn't have to lie and make up some story about how my family struggled. I never met my dad. My adopted dad had a 6th grade education. And he fought in the Second World War. He was one of 3,000 individuals that did all 4 combat jumps with the 82nd Airborne. So like my older brother and me, we started working when we were under 10. I was 7 years old, just to help my family. My mom had to figure out how to put food on the table, and it was hard. And you know, even though my family struggled, my mom told me, only because you grew up in America, you have every opportunity. You live in the greatest country in the world. I joined the Navy at 18, got married at 19, and I started businesses. We spent decades building businesses, and we lived our version of the American dream. Is that this American dream that every Democrat right now is trying to destroy. They attack America. They attack allies like Israel. They attack capitalism. They attack freedom. They attack anyone who has made money. They attack success. And they have to fabricate their stories about struggling. They wouldn't even understand the true horrors of socialism because they haven't led it. They like to attract President Trump for every word he says. But maybe if they were tolerant, like they say they were, they would see that Israel is the greatest champion for human rights in the Middle East. They spend their time right now worrying about the East Wing of the White House. Maybe Gavin Newsom should worry more about not letting communities like Pacific Palisades burned down because he doesn't care about preparing for wildfires. Maybe Mondami should focus on bringing the cost of living down in New York City by cutting taxes and reducing regulations, rather than trying to open up grocery stores. Think about it. Here's a guy that grew up rich, has never worried about being fed. Maybe he should go down to Cuba and see what it's like to see a bread line. His goal is to turn New York City into New Havana. Then we've got Michigan. Michigan wants to tax the rich. There's a ballot proposal that there's going to change the Constitution to start, saying they're going to go after the rich. They claim it is just on those rich people to make a whole bunch of money. That's how it all starts, but eventually they tax everyone because it never works. It's never enough money. Think about it right now. How much would it take if we took everybody's income and we wanted to pay off the deficit this year? What do you think? If we took everybody's income, if they made $10 million, $1 million, 500,000, we'd have to take everybody's income to balance the budget this year if you made more than $100,000. It's never enough. Now, when I was governor of Florida, I've worked hard to make sure, that was a good job, by the way. And Byron Donalds is here, and he's going to do a great job. He's going to do a great job. I hope everybody helps him. So what do? We tried to say, we worked our butts off to get everybody a job. We had 1.7 million jobs. We tried to become #1 higher education, top 5 in K-12 education, and we wanted to make sure everybody lived in a safe community. We cut taxes and fees. We made the place to where everybody wanted to move to Florida. We changed the Constitution, so we made it almost impossible to raise taxes. How many people have moved to Florida? A few, right? Now think about it. There's a reason that people are moving from New York. When I was governor, we became the 3rd biggest state we passed New York. And guess what? AOC's mom moved to Florida. Where's President Trump? He's in Florida. Why? Florida values freedom. We fight against anti-Semitic BDS policies, and Randy Fine's here, and he's been a leader. I just ran a banner over New York City beaches, and it said, "Hate socialism, us too, move to Florida." And some people say, aren't you worried you're going to get all those socialists? No, they stay. So that's why we've added way more Republicans, because we're the free state of Florida. Now, let me just close. And let's just slow down and think about this. Great nations don't automatically last forever. Every day, people around the world are desperately trying to get into our great country. We are the greatest nation in the world. We cannot be torn up from within, and that is why we all need to continue to support our great President Donald Trump and bust our butts to make sure we win every state and every local election, and that's how you win national elections. So I want to thank everybody for the opportunity to be here, and let me just finish with one thing I just want to say. I want to be clear about something. If you want to be anti-Semitic, there's already one political party that features that. Our side cannot tolerate anti-Semitism. We cannot and we will not put up with that in our Republican Party. All of us must stand together and condemn anti-Semitism and hatred wherever we see it. So I'm grateful for everybody here that's busting their butt to get Republicans elected. I'm very appreciative of what you're doing to help Israel and fight anti-Semitism. If there's anything I can do to be supportive, give me a call. Have a great night. Bye-bye.
Please welcome pro-Israel activist and influencer, Emma.
I'm not tall enough for this. Hang on. Good evening. Good evening. Shabbat Shalom. It's an honor to stand here with the Republican Jewish Coalition, a community that understands perhaps better than any other that clarity and courage are not optional in times like this. They are required. In the days and weeks after October 7th, like many of you, I found myself in constant conversations on television and interviews and debates online, trying to justify, explain, and contextualize. I felt obligated to prove to everyone that Israel's struggle was legitimate, that our pain was real, and that our right to exist was self-evident. But just with time, something shifted in me. I realized that no other nation on earth is asked to justify their existence every single day. Not China, not Russia, not Turkey, not America, not any country born through war, conflict, or the complicated history that defines every modern state. And yet Israel, the world's only Jewish state, the refuge for a people who survived exile, genocide, and statelessness, is uniquely and constantly placed on trial. So my posture changed. I stopped apologizing for Israel. I stopped negotiating with people whose stated end goal is the elimination of Jews. And I stopped entertaining the idea that Israel must earn a legitimacy that every other nation takes for granted. Because let me make myself clear, and it took me a while to figure this out, but better late than never. This is not a dispute over land. It's not about borders. This is a struggle against ideology that openly seeks to erase the Jewish people. So the world must hear this clearly. If Israel disappeared tomorrow, the war against Jewish people would not end. Because this is not a war on territory. It's a war on the people, on the faith, and on the values that have allowed the Jewish people to rebuild and thrive. And make no mistake, these values are not exclusively Jewish. They're Western values: freedom, individual rights, democracy, capitalism, the belief that human dignity does not come from the state. These are the very foundations that extremists, both abroad and here at home, are committed to dismantling. We see this in the romanticization of failed ideologies. Communism killed tens of millions under Stalin, and authoritarian socialism turned Venezuela, once one of the wealthiest nations in Latin America, into a humanitarian tragedy. Yet somehow, incredibly, we still hear voices in America praising these systems, importing their rhetoric and attempting to smuggle those failed ideas into our politics. People flee these collapsing countries to seek opportunity here. And then some of their chosen leaders attempt to recreate the very systems that destroyed the nations they left. And nowhere is this clearer than in my home, New York City. We're facing an election where a self-proclaimed socialist like Zoran Mamdani, a man who advocates for defunding the police, weakening public safety, and dismantling the very institutions that keep our communities secure, he is being elevated as a serious voice, potentially the future mayor of the biggest city in the world. Just think about the absurdity of that. People who escaped those countries ruined by authoritarianism and lawlessness, only to then empower leaders here that want to bring those failures to America's largest city. This is how great cities fall. This is how societies unravel. Not because the enemies are strong, but because we allow bad ideas to take root at home. So here's the lesson that I've learned in the past year. Strength works. Clarity works. And when I stopped explaining and started standing firm, something remarkable happened. Even people who disagreed with me began to respect me. They may not share my conclusions, but they recognize conviction. They recognize when someone speaks from principle instead of fear. And they respond to that. So tonight, I want to speak directly to everyone in this room. This is not a moment for qualifiers. This is not a moment for I support Israel, but, or I support America, but. Those days are gone. We do not apologize for defending the safety of our people. We do not apologize for standing with the only democracy in the Middle East. And we do not apologize for refusing to negotiate with those who celebrate murder, reject coexistence, hate America, and seek the destruction of an entire nation of people. Our community has always survived by refusing to bow down to intimidation. We have endured exile, persecution, attempts to erase us from history, and yet every time we come back stronger. Today is no different than the past. We will defend our values, we will protect our community, and we will continue to speak the truth clearly, forcefully, and unapologetically, because if we don't, then who will? Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, dinner is now served.
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The program will begin now. Please welcome Congressman Byron Donalds.
First of all, thank you, RJC, for the warm welcome. I love you. Aren't you glad that Kamala Harris is not president of the United States? I know I'm glad. We have witnessed one of the great changes in American foreign policy in just under 9 months, and that is because peace through strength reigns again in the United States of America. But even though we have a lot to celebrate and there's a lot of great things happening in our party, I would be remiss if we didn't mention some of the internal conversations that have been going on lately. I think this is the time, and I see my good friend Mark Levin. It's good to see him as always. It's good seeing you, my friend. And I saw him earlier today, and we were talking about this a little bit. And I think it's important for not just everybody here at the Republican Jewish Coalition, but for all Americans to understand and remember that the Republican Party was founded to free the slaves. The Republican Party has always stood for civil rights. The Republican Party has always stood for freedom of speech and freedom to worship your God and freedom to live your life, free from the tyranny of government and free from the tyranny that plagued Europe. You see, we are not a party that stands for Marxism. We don't stand for communism. We don't stand for totalitarianism. We stand for constitutionalism and liberty. That is our party. And so while you have some people who might want to call into question certain things when it comes to Israel, let me be very clear. In our party, we will not tolerate anti-Semitism. We will not tolerate bigotry. Because let me tell you a quick story. I was in Israel back in 2019. I went to Israel. And I was in country for 9 days. And on that trip, what came up a lot was how it was Jewish people who stood with black people in America when they were being persecuted. And so what we are not going to do is stand idly by and watch definitely those in the Democrat Party and then some in other parts of politics try to demonize Jewish Americans here and try to weaken or destroy the relationship between the United States of America and the nation of Israel. There's another conversation we got to have. We might as well just get to it. I believe in America first. I believe in it wholeheartedly. But America first does not mean America only. When America recedes from the world, it is clear what happens. Our enemies are on the move. Just examine the last 150 years of geopolitics, and it's clear that when America does not stand and have moral clarity on the world stage, evil abounds. So in this time period, where some may want to question and some may want to doubt, there is no question and there's no doubt with me. Israel is our ally in the region. We will stand with them because the people, and this is to quote Senator Cruz from last night, the people who hate Israel, they hate America too. And now let me focus a little bit on what's happening inside the United States. We all see what's happening in New York. Mamdani, that lunatic. He doesn't know economics. He's never had a real job, but he's going to lecture you and I about how policy and how systems work. He doesn't know what he's talking about, but worse, he is a radical of the worst kind. So for those of you in the city of New York who may have to, and hopefully Jack Ciattarelli becomes the next governor of New Jersey, and you could go across the Hudson. But if you need a place to go and you're not quite sure, always remember that in Florida, we are the free state of Florida, as Rick Scott said. We are the place and we are the land that will always stand by the Jewish people, as Governor DeSantis has done. And you have my word that going forward, Florida will always stand for freedom and liberty, and we will never tolerate anti-Semitism. RJC, it's always a pleasure to be here with you guys. I love you guys. Ladies and gentlemen, we got Dave McCormick, Senator of Pennsylvania, is here with us. In this time period, and I'll be serious, in this time, there can be no allowance for a lack of moral clarity. We know what is right. We know what is just. Our party has always stood by it, and our party always will. And this coalition of Republicans and the Jewish community, we will always stand together to make sure we stand for the moral good, Judean Christian values, and Western civilization here in the United States of America. God bless you guys. God bless you. God bless Israel. God bless America.
Please welcome United States Senator from South Carolina, Lindsey Graham.
Thank you. So many people have told me that they love me. And I want to tell you, I love me as much as you, if not more. But I do appreciate it. How many of you people know who Shecky Green is? Oh, you're about to get some of that. So anyway, if you're looking for an intellectual discussion of the U.S.-Israel relationship, that comes when Dave McCormick speaks later on. But I just want to make it really clear, I'm in the Hitler sucks wing of the Republican Party. What is this Hitler shit? I don't know. Anyway, here's what I do know. You can sit in a basement with weird people and say weird things. It's a free country, right? But if you ever run for office as a Republican and you embrace this weird shit, we're going to beat your brains out. If you're an anti-Semite and you think because somebody loves Israel, their brain is wired, that means you got a brain. Nothing wrong with your brain. We will meet you on the battlefield of political discourse, and we will beat you politically. I want the world to know anti-Semitism, anti-Israel rhetoric, anti-Israel thought is not the road to being elected as a Republican. You will lose. So now we got that out of the way. Speaking of great friends of American Israel, your new ambassador, Ambassador Leiter, is a great man. You're doing a good job. After Ron Dermer, the bar was low, you jumped over it. So he lost his son in Gaza, and God bless you and your family. You're just a great, great man. Ron Dermer. How many of you think Ron Dermer would be a great prime minister one day? I'm giving the first shekel to your campaign. But I want Bibi to hear I said one day, because if he thinks you're going to run soon, you're going to be ambassador to Gaza. So what's life going to be like without Ron Dermer at the helm? I can't even envision that, but I can say this, he'll never go away. In all seriousness, of all the people who've ever served the Jewish state, from generals to prime ministers to people of every stripe, no one has done a better job than you, Ron. Nobody. No general, no prime minister, nobody has fought harder for the Jewish state, more consistently for the Jewish state than Ron Dermer. Nobody. And every great Jewish person comes from Miami Beach, so I like your chances. So Halloween with Jewish people in Las Vegas is scary to some, but I'm enjoying the hell out of it. So I've been asked 1,000 times about this crazy interview. I keep telling people, we're good. Our party is good, right, Dave? We're real good. You know, somebody said, how hard is it to stand up for the Jewish state? In South Carolina, not so hard. We figured out at Israel's, if you ask me, you go to college and you ask me a question, why do we spend so much money on Israel, and don't you think they get us involved in problems and blah, 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 I would say you need to pick up a history book. And we have no better friend than the state of Israel. Everybody who wants to destroy the Jewish state wants to kill us too. I've been to Israel a bunch. No one has yet said death to America while I've been there. They want to buy me a beer, but nobody says death to America. All the terrorists you're killing, Ron, is one less terrorist that can get here. Common values and common enemies. And if you don't get that, you should not be allowed to drive. So what to do about Hamas? Kill them off. Kill them off. You know why I don't have a pet tiger? There is no such thing as a pet tiger. Remember Siegfried and Roy? We're down to Siegfried. So they had the tigers, and they loved the tigers, and apparently the tigers they thought loved them. They had Cleo, their favorite tiger. He lived at the house. They were teaching him to drive. And one night, for some unknown reason, he ate Roy. He's a tiger. Hamas is dedicated to the destruction of the Jewish state. They're dedicated to killing everybody that disagrees with them religiously in their own faith, and they're never going to change. So let's get on with it. Let's make sure they can't survive and come back and do October the 7th. Now, I'm glad we got the hostages back. God bless that deal. I'm glad we got a ceasefire, but I'm worried that Hamas is not going to play the game the way we thought they would. If you're shocked they're shooting people in the streets, you missed a lot what they did before they got the ceasefire. I just think give Israel some time. But there'll come a point, Ron, where we got to just end this thing. There is no path forward in the Middle East as long as Hamas is around. Get them out. Hezbollah. I've never felt more hopeful about Lebanon. We got a Christian president in Lebanon. We got a Sunni prime minister. And half the Shiites in Lebanon want Hezbollah to disarm. Man, we got an opportunity here, but you got to be strong, right? So let's finish Hamas off one way or the other. Let's go to Lebanon and give Hezbollah an offer they can't refuse, and get back to normalizing with Saudi Arabia and leave Iran in the dustbin of history. We can do all that. Speaking of Donald Trump, he said, hey, so he's a great president. If you don't believe me, just ask him. What happened with me and him was we found common ground. I've come to like him and he likes him, and that changed our entire relationship. But he did the Golan Heights thing. Remember, Ron? He said, I called him up, where you at? I'm with BB on the Golan Heights. He said, I didn't know we were in New York. No, that's another Golan Heights. We're over there. He recognized the Golan Heights by tweet because he understood you can't give it back to Syria because they'll use it to kill you. He recognized Jerusalem as capital of Israel. Why? Because if you got a problem with that, take it up with God. He's the guy that did it, not Trump. So I just want to say, I feel good about the Republican Party. I feel good about where we're going as a nation. We're killing all the right people and we're cutting your taxes. Trump is my favorite president. We've run out of bombs. We didn't run out of bombs in World War II. So, as a coalition of Republicans, some Baptist, some Jewish, we organize ourselves around principles that we love and we cherish. We love individual freedom. We love entrepreneurship. We love capitalism. We love Israel. We love the idea of Israel. We love the struggle they've been involved in. We love them helping them because you're helping yourself. So to those who worry about these stupid interviews in far off places, don't worry. The Republican Party has figured it out when it comes to Israel. We understand that Israel is a friend of America to the bitter end. We understand that God blesses those who bless Israel. And where I come from, I figured that crap out when I was 6 years old. God bless you. Thank you very much.
Please welcome Israel's ambassador to the United Nations, Danny Danone.
Shabbat Shalom. What an amazing evening. Distinguished elected officials, my colleagues from Israel, Minister Dermer, Ambassador Leiter, you know, you are used to it, to be among friends in Washington, in Jerusalem, but for me to be in a room full of 1,000 Zionists, devoted Zionists, it's exciting. It's exciting. Thank you, RJC, for putting this amazing event together tonight. My friends, 2 years ago, the Jewish people faced the darkest day in our modern history. Today, we stand at a historic moment for our region. Israel has achieved what many thought impossible. All of our living hostages are home. The remains of 17 fallen hostages have been recovered and given the dignity of a proper burial. Hamas has finally been forced to accept what it rejected from the start, to return the hostages and to disarm. This moment was not born of luck. It was the result of a unique combination of conviction and courage. It came at a heavy cost, the sacrifice of our soldiers who fought like lions to defend our people. We owe a great deal of thanks to Prime Minister Netanyahu, to President Donald Trump and his administration, whose vision laid the path from the Abraham Accords to the 20-point plan. No American president has done more to advance Israel's security or to expand cooperation in our region. My friend, I am being honest with you, and you can ask my wife about it. When I finished my first term as Israel's ambassador to the UN, I did not expect to return. 5 years in that place is more than enough. But when the Prime Minister, you know that one, when he calls you and asks you to serve, you have to tell him, yes. You answer. And I'll admit, I didn't think the UN could get more hostile toward Israel, but somehow they managed. Since October 7th, the UN Security Council has not passed a single resolution condemning Hamas for its massacre. Not even one. They found time for dozens of meetings about so-called genocide and so-called starvation, yet not one word about the hostages. But we refused to stay silent. We brought the voices of former hostages, Mi Hashem, Noah Argamani, Eli Sharabi, and many more, into the halls of the UN, so the world would hear the unimaginable cruelty they endured. Week after week, we reminded the world who started this war and that it cannot end until every hostage is home. Then there is the UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres. He hasn't visited Israel since October 7th. Let's think about that for a minute. The UN was established 80 years ago, after the Holocaust, after the Second World War, to prevent the atrocities we saw that day. And after the worst slaughter of our people since the Holocaust, you would expect the Secretary General to take one of his private jets and visit the communities of Sderot, Kfar Aza, Nir Oz. So when I arrived to the UN, I confronted him. I had a personal relationship with him. My family had hosted him for many, many Shabbat dinners. And I told him, I asked him, why have you not come to Israel? It's basic. You are the Secretary General of the United Nations. You know what he told me? He told me, Danny, the Prime Minister never sent me a formal invitation. That is shameful. Shameful. We also face legal warfare. The efforts of the ICJ and the ICC to constrain Israel's right to defend itself. Next week, after we will finish this beautiful gathering, I will go back to the UN and we're going to have a debate on Monday about the question whether Israel should cooperate with UNRWA. I will remind them, my colleagues, that this agency, it was corrupted by Hamas as a breeding ground for terror before October 7th, whose employees carried out the massacre and whose ties to terror remain unbroken to this day. I will remind them of Jonathan Samerano, Zichrono Levracha, murdered and kidnapped by an UNRWA employee and driven into Gaza in a UN vehicle. Let me say it clearly tonight, and maybe you can tell them that before Monday. No advisory opinion of the ICJ, no report, no resolution will change our minds. Israel is done with UNRWA. These are a few examples of what I call diplomatic terrorism, fighting not only terrorists with weapons, but those in suits who twist international law against Israel in the halls of the UN and in The Hague. They try to delegitimize us, to isolate us and silence us. But we are strong. We are determined to win this fight. Despite the pressure, the bias, the pain and sacrifice, we can see positive change in the region. Lebanon is in a better place with a new government. Syria is somewhat safer for all of us. We have restored deterrence on multiple fronts, from Gaza to Yemen to Iran. So we can be proud of our soldiers, our sons and daughters, who showed the world that the days when Jews were massacred and there was no response are over. Not anymore. We have proved that today we are capable of defending ourselves and securing our future. That is exactly what we have done in the past 24 months and what we will continue to do. We are most grateful to the US and to our allies for standing with us. But we keep stressing to them that our struggle is not over. 11 fallen hostages remain in Hamas captivity. We will not forget them. They will not be left behind. Dear friends, I am optimistic about our future because in our region, strength earns respect. And we have more than proven our capabilities. I have had Arab ambassadors whisper to me about our operations in Lebanon and Iran. One of them came to me in the Security Council. He told me, Danny, you know, inshallah, one day we will have peace. I want to come to Tel Aviv and to meet the guy or the girl who designed the pager operation. I told him, you better hurry up, because some of them are moving to the private sector. So tell your leader not to be shy. And I can tell you that I'm optimistic about many, many countries. And I don't know, whether you call them the Abraham Accords or the Abraham Accords, but we have to admit it. They opened the door. Now, it's time to widen it. The UAE has been very constructive during this war. Others, moderate Arab and Muslim nations, are signaling readiness. I feel it, because when I walk, I can tell if they walk to the next side of the room or they come to speak with me. And I feel it. I'm optimistic about it. Across the region, quiet discussions about cooperation that once seemed impossible are becoming reality. Once we finish the job in Gaza, bring our fallen hostages, and ensure Hamas's disarmament, it will be time to start build again. I want to thank the RJC. You are fighting the good fight every day. You are making sure our voices are heard loud and clear in Congress, on campuses, and I see so many young leaders here today. You are on the front lines, defending Israel and defending the US. So for me, from Israel and from the Jewish people, thank you. Kol hakavod to all of you. The history books will remember October 7th as a day of tragedy, but it will also remember what the Jewish people did in the hours, months, and years that followed. How our nation stood united, resilient, and strong. Despite pressure from the entire world, we remain strong, and we will ensure that no one is left behind. I want to thank you for your commitment and partnership. Together, we will keep playing offense. Together, we will prevail. Thank you very much, and Shabbat Shalom.
Please welcome the CEO of Newsmax Media, Chris Ruddy.
These are hard acts to follow. Danny, Lindsay, Byron. I don't know, I think I need to go to like acting school, media school, learn how to give a speech. Before I start my remarks, I might say that some of you may not know, but I've known the president for almost 30 years. I met him, and I probably talked to him over the past 25 years or seen him once a week on average. And he's an amazing, incredible man. But when you think about his accomplishments, I was there when he signed the Abraham Accords, got almost no credit for it. Now he's done, which was mind-boggling in itself, now he's done this incredible feat with Gaza and getting the hostages, working with Bibi Netanyahu. He gets no credit practically from the media. I saw him recently. Lindsay and I were with him 2 weeks ago. And I said, you know, the New York Times, after you cure cancer, they're going to have the headline that says, Trump failed to get FDA clearance for cancer cure. He liked that. It's an honor to be here with the Republican Jewish Coalition, Matt Brooks, Marty Olner, who invited me, and a number of people that have been, Norm Coleman, great, great Americans. It's a group that has stood with courage and conviction for the values that define America and Israel, faith, freedom, and truth. When I founded Newsmax, I wanted to build something different, a media company that speaks truth without apology, that gives a voice to those ignored or silenced by the establishment press. Today, Newsmax is one of the fastest growing media companies in America. We reach more than 50 million Americans regularly. Many of you have seen our cable channel, our streaming channel, Newsmax 2, our website. We have over 22 million social media followers. Recently, Reuters said we were one of the top news brands in America. So millions of Americans are really tuning in. And I think they're tuning in because they trust us to tell the truth. And these millions come to support our mission in many ways. Just this year, we went public at the New York Stock Exchange with a historic IPO. And these millions are tuning in because they know Newsmax doesn't run and we tell the truth. And the truth includes standing with Israel, not just when it's easy, but when it's hard. I was only 19 years old when I first traveled to Israel to study at the Hebrew University. Menachem Begin was the prime minister at the time. I remember it very well. But I was a little shocked as a teenager discovering how many lies there were about media, in the big media, about Israel. And what's incredible is all these years later, things haven't changed. They've actually gotten worse. The media continues to twist the facts, erase the context, often portray Israel, our lone democratic ally in the Middle East, as the bad guy, as the aggressor. I mean, they get attacked on October 7th and they're the bad guy. It's worse today because the liberal media echo chamber is more effective than it was so many years ago. At Newsmax, we're pushing back. We've told the world what really happened on October 7th. We've shown the faces of the victims, the stories of the hostages, the courage of the Israeli people. Because truth matters, and silence in the face of lies is complicity. On October 7th, we were all Israelis. But tonight, I want to talk to you about something else, something that's just as troubling. We expect attacks on Israel from the far left. But increasingly, we're seeing dangerous rhetoric from the right in America. Now, I don't call these people conservatives. Mark Levin's sitting over there. He's a conservative. Real conservatives don't spread hate, but some of these voices, people like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens, have made it their mission to target Israel. All the problems of the world left in America and the world, and they're focused on Israel. You got to wonder what's going on here. They even question its right to defend itself, and they've made statements and taken actions that really undermine Israel's very right to exist. These folks are spreading old lies and anti-Semitic claims like the ones that Jews secretly control America. They control everything. Tucker recently made a post claiming Prime Minister Netanyahu is telling everyone he knows that he controls Donald Trump. He's telling everyone this. With what the source is, I don't know. Well, anyone knows, either Bibi Netanyahu or Donald Trump knows this is just absolutely ridiculous that he would be making such a claim. Today, I just saw a post this morning. I was in Los Angeles before I came here, and claiming that without any source, that on the days that Israel was attacking Iran, Tucker claims he had sources in the Pentagon that Israeli generals and military people were going from room to room in the Pentagon telling the American generals what to do and what they couldn't do. Bizarre, right? At first it seems like a laughable lie, but we cannot ignore it because it's really clever propaganda by Tucker. And it's also anti-Semitism, pure and simple. Don't forget, it's the same lie the Nazis told. The Jews controlled everything. They controlled Britain. They controlled the United States. Now it's being repackaged for a new generation of Americans, amplified by millions of dollars pouring into social media from bad actors around the world. That really needs to be investigated by Congress. Some even claim, as Tucker recently did in another post, that the Bible completely got it wrong. Jews aren't the chosen people of God. Imagine that. He's now a biblical scholar, and he can overturn 2,000 years of Christian and Jewish teachings. Make no mistake about this. This is an information war we're fighting. I saw it with Ukraine. The same voices who said we shouldn't support Ukraine after Vladimir Putin's unprovoked attack are the same voices the day after October 7th saying we shouldn't support Israel. I can show you the same influences literally the day after. Somebody was coordinating this, folks. They were all saying the same thing, and their line was very clever at the time. It's not our war. We shouldn't be involved. It's very sad what happened. Over time, those arguments have become more hostile, more poisonous. So our discussion today is not about foreign policy. It's about moral clarity at a time of great danger and confusion. I want you to know Newsmax will not waver. We will stand with our friends. We will stand with the people of Ukraine. And if you don't realize that Israel and Ukraine is connected, do a little more research. Listen to Mark's show a few more times in his podcast. We will stand with the people of Israel. Each year, Newsmax celebrates July 4th at the King David Hotel in Jerusalem, honoring our shared democracies. This year, we were going to do our 5th annual celebration. Mike Huckabee was coming. We were a little interrupted by a war. And of course, there was no notice. Just a few days before, we found out the war started. So we postponed the event in August. And guess what? We had a surprise visitor. Bibi Netanyahu came. Sarah Netanyahu came. The Prime Minister spoke about the resilience and unbreakable spirit of Israel's people. He also said that in dark times, Israel will never bow to terror, never surrender its faith, and never forget its friends. It is said, I've said it before, and I believe it even more strongly today, that Benjamin Netanyahu is the Churchill of our time. His leadership against Iran didn't just save Israel, it saved America and the West. A nuclear-armed Iran would not only threaten Tel Aviv, but New York, London, Las Vegas, Los Angeles, and every city that values freedom. President Trump understood that. I remember at the time there were all these press reports. He didn't want them to attack Iran. I remember meeting a group of ambassadors. He said, no, he doesn't want Israel to. No, he wants Israel to defend itself. That has always been his position. President Trump's courageous decision to support Israel, to stand with Netanyahu, and to withdraw from the Iran deal earlier on, all of these choices mattered. They showed that elections in America have real consequences, not just for us, but for the entire world. So tonight, I want to thank all of you here with the Republican Jewish Coalition for your courage, your advocacy, your faith. The work you're doing matters now more than ever, because this is just not a political fight, it's a civilizational fight. The enemies of truth are loud, but together we can be louder. The enemies of Israel are relentless, but together we can be resolute. And as long as I have a platform, Newsmax will stand on the side of truth, the side of freedom, the side of Israel. And I want to thank you for standing so strong. And I want to say thank you, and God bless America, and God bless not only the state of Israel, the people of Israel, for fighting and being in the danger zone for so long. Thank you, and God bless you.
Welcome, renowned author and commentator, Douglas Murray. Please welcome United States Senator from Pennsylvania, Dave McCormick.
Okay, this is your final event of the evening, and we are all so privileged to have Douglas Murray. Douglas, thank you so much for being here. And we're going to make this very interesting. If it gets a little slow, we may call Lindsay up. Is Lindsay still here? He's gone to the after party. Yeah, Lindsay's already off to the after party. Douglas, you have been such a voice of moral clarity. There's probably no one who has written as thoughtfully about the origins of anti-Semitism, what's happened over the last several years with the horrible attack on Israel. And you wrote a great book on democracies and death cults, which is a bestseller. We met last year at this RJC, and a lot has happened since then. Most notably, the ceasefire, the hostages returned. Are we done? Is the war over?
Well, first of all, can I just say what a pleasure it is to be back with you, and what a pleasure it is for me to be back with the RJC. Until Lindsey Graham got up, I didn't realize it was open mic night at the RJC, but clearly it is, and it's a difficult act for us to follow. I've also spent enough time in Israel now, I think have become slightly Jewish. I noticed that on the way in, I kept standing up whilst other people were speaking and going to talk at other tables and things. So I've got to be forgiving to you if you do it as well, but thank you. I said in a recent piece in the Free Press that there are two wars that actually I wrote about in my book and which I've been writing about and considering for the last 2 years. The first war is the war on the ground, the war that Hamas started on October the 7th, the war that the IDF has been fighting for the last 2 years. And that has been, I mean, let's just take a moment again to recognize the achievements. Unimaginable, even from when we were sitting here this time last year. The last time we were all gathered together here in Las Vegas was before the first anniversary of October the 7th. And just consider that what Yahya Sinwar started on the 7th led up till now to the decimation of Hamas in Gaza, the death of Sinwar and all of his colleagues who started this war, the decimation of Hezbollah, the opportunity of the IDF and the IAF to operate everywhere in the region where they needed to operate, and for the IAF and for the American Air Force to be able to fly over the skies of Iran anytime they wanted. This is a generational achievement, and it's down to the political leadership in Israel, the political leadership we've seen here in America, and the extraordinary men and women of the IDF. And that that story is one that you will know about. Many people in the wider world don't know enough about yet. But the second war is the war here at home in America, the war in the rest of the West, the war that goes on wherever in the last 2 years I've gone when I haven't been in Israel, whether it's been here in America or back in my country of birth in Great Britain or in France or Canada or Australia. It doesn't matter where in the world you go. You find these lunatics on the streets, not just on the campuses, on the streets of major cities. You can go to Melbourne on a Saturday afternoon and you'll find thousands of Australians chanting their opposition to the state of Israel and their support for various terrorists. And what are you doing? You're in Melbourne. What's it got to do with you? You're miles away. What is it that has gone on outside of the Middle East? My fear is that although Israel's been winning the war in the region, in the rest of the West, particularly here in America, to some extent we've been losing. We've been losing by the fact that we've seen the mainstreaming of support, not for Palestinians or for Palestinian statehood, but for Hamas. Why is it that at Princeton you have a group chanting the other month, "Glory to our martyrs"? Our martyrs. Princeton. What's our doing there? What's martyrs? Since when did students going up to Princeton have the hots for Hamas? When did this start? This is for me the problem we need to address.
You know, I saw this, we all saw it, but I saw this in Pennsylvania, University of Pennsylvania. I saw it at University of Pittsburgh, where a kid that had my shirt, McCormick for Senate, and an Israel flag was assaulted. And it was so shocking as a non-Jew after October 7th, knowing anti-Semitism existed, but never imagining the depth and the vitriol. So you've written about this. What's the root cause? Where did we go wrong? How did this happen?
Well, my view has always been that anti-Semitism and anti-Israelism are just the furthest flank of anti-Westernism. This has been mentioned already tonight, but I came up with this formulation a while ago. I think I mentioned this last year. I borrowed from the great Russian Soviet writer Vasily Grossman, where he says in the middle of Life and Fate, "Tell me what you accuse the Jews of, I'll tell you what you're guilty of." It's a brilliant, brilliant observation by him. Where he says, the anti-Semite tells us nothing about the Jews. They just tell us something about themselves. So, the Nazis said that the Jews were racists who wanted to take over the world. You think, interesting. Take any group throughout history, and right up to the present day. Whatever they accuse the Jews of and the Jewish state of is what they're guilty of. The Iranian Revolutionary Government says that the Jewish state is colonizing. Interesting for the citizens of Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Yemen, Gaza, etc. But in our countries in the West, there's a slight shift on this, which I say, tell me what you accuse the Jews of, if you're like an American student. Tell me what you accuse the Jewish state of in particular, and I'll tell you what you've been taught that you are guilty of. I wrote 2 books back in the War on the West. If you look at the things that young Americans are being taught from grade school upwards, it's not just the universities, it's too easy in a way to focus on that. Just look at what American kids are taught about their own history here in America. It's what Elon Musk some time ago said to Bill Maher is the woke mind virus, which is, he said to a friend's kid, what do you know about Thomas Jefferson? Answer, slave owner. Anything else? No. That's the virus. And that's something that has been inculcated into the minds of young Americans, young Canadians, young Australians, is that they've been taught that even if you're born in the 21st century, you're guilty of white supremacy, you're guilty of colonialism, you're guilty of genocide, you're guilty of ethnic cleansing. And as I said in the War on the West, there's nothing you can do if you've been taught you're guilty of this because you haven't done anything. All that's happened is you've been told you've got guilt for something you didn't do. And as I said in that book, something will happen as a result of this. because you cannot live with an unalleviatable guilt, something that can never be forgiven. And so how has it exploded in our time? And I'm not talking here about the hardcore Islamists and others who live in our societies, but for what would have been normal kids, it's that for many of them, we shouldn't exaggerate, but for many of them, it's that they have this orgiastic glee in being able to accuse another country now of all the things that they have been taught that they have inherited guilt for. They will expiate their taught guilt by saying the Jewish state is committing genocide, the Jewish state is white supremacist, showing they've never walked down an Israeli street. They will say all of these things about Israel, and it's almost with relief. It's the same thing you hear in Europe. You can hear in Germany, in Austria, where I was last week, the joy that some Europeans have in being able to accuse the Jewish state of genocide. Means we don't have any guilt.
Yeah. So for those of us here in the audience that are in public life, governors or senators, what should we do? What is the way that we address the course correction on the second battle, the second war?
I think there's several things. One is that for Jewish Americans in particular, I say not being Jewish myself, but I can only give a piece of advice on this, is never to tolerate things that other groups wouldn't tolerate. And I grew up in England. The Jewish community is different in England than it is here. And the Jewish community in America has always been much more vocal, much more proud, much more willing to put its head above the parapet and be counted. But still, as I've said for the last couple of years, tell me that if for instance, I live in New York, but if a Columbia University or some other university in New York, once a black student had been chased across campus by a group of actual white supremacists saying, "Go back to where you came from," don't tell me that this country wouldn't have been in uproar. And we would have been rightly in uproar.
Yeah.
And we would have stood beside our black brothers and sisters and said, "We are with you." And if once some sexual minority that had happened to, let alone for 2 years, this would have been wall-to-wall coverage on every network. So why is it that when it's Jewish kids being chased down the streets and insulted and Jewish families being made to feel threatened, people get used to it? And so that's the first thing, is just not putting up with the double standards that many Jews are expected to put up with in America, and thankfully I think people in this room don't. But the second thing is, I think we need to get out this very clear message that, again, as somebody mentioned earlier, they're just always related. The anti-Semitism, the anti-Israelism, and the anti-Westernism. I have a sort of shortcut to this. You just mentioned it there, but go to any anti-Israel protest in this country and go to any pro-Israel protest in this country and notice one glaring difference. The pro-Israel protest will have happy people, by the way, generally, you'll notice, happy people flying the flag of the State of Israel and the flag of this country. Go to an anti-Israel protest and they will be flying the flag of the Palestinians, they will be flying the flag maybe of Hamas or of Hezbollah or the Iranian Revolutionary Government. They will not be flying an American flag. In fact, if there is an American flag there, it's only there so they can put it on the floor and burn it. This tells us quite a lot. We sang tonight Hatikva and the Star-Spangled Banner. Find me the anti-Israel protest in America where they would sing the national anthem of America. And the same thing goes in every country. Find the anti-Israel protesters in the UK who, after they've screamed jihad, jihad, all get together and sing God Save the King. It doesn't happen. Go to Canada and you find the Hamasniks and the Hezbollah lovers and all the people who worship all these people who are now dead. If they're protesting in Toronto or Ottawa, They never stop at the end and say, oh, hey guys, let's all stop and sing O Canada. It doesn't happen. And that tells us everything.
Yeah. So let's go back to the first war. So are you optimistic? What does Gaza look like in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years? Is there another Abraham Accords 2? How do you see the future?
It would be a very unwise person to make a prediction about Gaza, not least because of Ron Dermer and other people being present who know much more. I would just say this. I was enormously encouraged when President Trump broke the Overton window on Gaza, and have been very encouraging of his statements on this. And let me just say quickly why. Until the President earlier this year started, expressing, let's say, innovative new opinions about what could be done with Gaza, there was a status quo opinion which was completely intolerable, which was the presumption, which again, if you go to the chancelleries of Europe, you will still hear, which is, after the war, Gaza must be rebuilt, preferably with our taxpayer money, and a Hamas-like entity will probably end up being in charge, and an UNRWA-like entity will end up running the education system, and we'll all pay our taxpayer dollars to rebuild it, and then they'll probably do another October the 7th, and in about 10 years the IDF will have to go in and smash it up again. That is a totally nihilistic, impossible, pointless and futile policy which you will still find policymakers in Paris and London and Berlin talking about. But there's no point to it. Myself, like many of you, in fact all of you I'd have thought, I never want to see another young Israeli have to go into Gaza with a gun. I don't see why this should be Israel's responsibility. And when President Trump said, we'll clear Gaza, or we'll let people leave, or we'll buy Gaza, or we don't have to buy it, we can just take it, or we'll, make it Las Vegas, or whatever, I don't care. Any and all ideas that do not involve the perceived status quo just happening again and again, to my mind, are good. And if the Trump plan can come about, if obviously, the Board of Peace has got a bit of fleshing out still to be done, but I'm told that there are lots of people in the region who want to be on it. I'm thrilled that President Trump has said that he will lead it, because it shows his commitment to this,
Absolutely.
his ongoing commitment. And so we'll see. But this should be, among other things, a time for all those other countries in the region which pretend that they care about the Palestinians to show up and take some responsibility. This is their time.
This is the test, yeah. Ron and I were just talking about how only Trump could have brought all these forces together because of those relationships, and they don't want to disappoint him. One of the things, my wife and I have gone to Israel a number of times, but several times in the last 2 years. The thing that always strikes me is when I'm there, the facts on the ground, then I come back to the United States, the narrative is almost entirely different. And most notably on humanitarian aid. So we went and sat down with the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. We saw the plans, the efforts to make sure that humanitarian assistance was going to women and children in Gaza, the efforts, the danger people put themselves in. And we came back, and that narrative is completely unknown and misrepresented by the media here in the United States. And it raises the question, does Israel have a PR problem? Does it inaccurately tell its story? And I ask you, as one of the great storytellers, someone who really has told the story accurately, but is there an issue there, and what are your reflections on it?
Well, I've sometimes said that Israel is a remarkable country for many reasons, but one is that it has about 8 million potential prime ministers, or would-be prime ministers, which makes it, I admire people in government in Israel for being able to manage that. If that's the case in Israel, however many Jews there are around the world outside of Israel, everybody believes they know how to do Hasbara and moans that the Israelis don't get it, and so on. My view has always been the same, which is I think there are so many talented people who've got the right views, who know what they're talking about, who should just do their own thing. And we've heard from a range of them tonight. You're going to hear from more in the coming days. There is no one answer to the Israel PR problem. But I think there are some things one has to accept from the beginning. One is that numerically in the region, the Israelis are vastly outnumbered. Tiny country, and just compare it to, for instance, Pakistan, which, for all sorts of interesting reasons, produces lots of people who are feverishly online, often pretending to be American Jews, by the way, putting forth their views on X about how this country or Israel should be run. Just vastly outnumbered in those terms. And that means that there are just certain things, again, with certain newspapers, I won't name names, certain media outlets, I won't name names, but that's just going to be an ongoing problem. And the only hope you can have in some ways is that you can keep exposing it, you can keep revealing how some of the media works on this, the lies they tell. And my sense is, by the way, we shouldn't be too down about this. My experience in this conflict is that the Israeli government and the army has been better at getting out information faster than any conflict I've seen before. And yes, there are still, challenges to getting that out. But you've got to face up to the asymmetry which exists and get out there with the optimistic, I think, stance that I've always had, which is it doesn't matter if there are 1,000 lies in the room, one truth will pierce them all. And that, I think we've all seen that in our lives, and it works with the media too, and I think there's no reason it shouldn't work with Israel.
Well, lies in the room brings me to sort of the elephant in the room, which is this very week. This very week you had a avowed anti-Semite, Fuentes, given platform, where this is a guy who says Hitler was cool, has specifically said that Jews should be terminated if, in the next round of white nationalist leadership. And those views went unchallenged, which a number of speakers have talked tonight about this rise of anti-Semitism on the right. What's going on? Is this a little problem, or is this a big problem that's growing?
It's a problem, and if it's not addressed now, it will grow. I would just say to my Republican friends that what was the worst thing that the Democratic Party has done in recent years? Don't shout out. One of them was the tolerance on their own side of slogans like defund the police. A disaster for the Democrats. Moderate Democrats, of which there are some, were so misguided not to hit this on the head when it came up, when the far left lunacy in their party came up. The squad of the Democratic Party is the greatest gift that the Republican Party could have. You have these people who just, 4 people, minor, they shouldn't be making the weather, but what a gift to the Republican Party the squad is. They will keep saying anti-American things, they will keep putting their feet in it, they'll keep riling up most of the country, and they will keep the Democratic Party being able to be portrayed as grabbed by them. Well, it's the same for the Republican Party. If the Republican Party doesn't address its own fetid corners, then the Democrats will have a legitimate way to say, look, you've got this big problem and you're only one step away, or so on. So there's no reason why, I don't need to insult the guy, but why the person you just mentioned's name should be on our lips. This is just, there are some people who are, for those of us who know history, there are some people who are simply doing the following intellectual trick. They're reheating a bit of Buchananism, they're reheating some David Irvingism, and they're doing it now, and they're getting away with it for a very specific historic reason, if I can just say what I think that is. They're getting away with it now for the first time from the right because of the fact that the generation of Holocaust survivors is basically died out. These people did not dare do this in the face of the immovable object of the survivors of the Shoah. But now, some people to the furthest fringes of the right are seeing the opportunity to do this. All we have to do on the right, you in the Republican Party, is to just hold the line that you all know you can hold and to say no. Nowhere near us. Nowhere near us. And it's not like it's hard. And you know, the various characters who want to platform these people and think it's edgy and it's cool. There's nothing very edgy or cool about doing that on the right any more than there was on the left. How edgy and cool and admiring do we think of those far leftists who like to play with Castro and Mao and Stalin and all of that? Not at all. It's a rancid, fetid habit from the far left. Same thing with these guys with the right. And no, don't ask this person on and then just say you're just asking questions and give them softball interviews and come on. Anyhow, I don't know what's gone wrong with some of these people, but I don't think it's going to be hard to counter. As somebody mentioned earlier, I'm still pretty strong on the idea that being anti-Hitler remains mainstream.
So we'll finish up here with two questions. A quick one. You talked about the squad as being the gift that keeps on giving. What about, you're a New Yorker, you live in New York. What about Mamdani? Is that a gift that's going to keep on giving for the Republican Party? Or should we buy or sell New York real estate? What's your...
I mean, it's an amazing thing. I've written this in my column in the New York Post. It's pretty amazing to see Mamdani smarm his way into office, which is what it looks like he's going to do, evading every meaningful question. I'm sorry that so much of the opposition research has only just started to come out, but I mean, you know, as somebody mentioned earlier, you have somebody saying that the NYPD has its boot on the throat of New Yorkers and it's laced by the IDF, even before you get to that anti-Semitic far-left trope about everyone being trained by the IDF. What are you talking about the NYPD like that for? How dare you? These men and women who go into the most dangerous situations all the time, and you're talking about them as if they have their boots on the throats of New Yorkers? Good luck getting the respect of the police in New York after doing that kind of thing. But if he gets in, yes, I predict that he will be extremely useful to the Republican Party in campaigning. He'll be disastrous for those of us who live in New York. And he will, of course, be using it. Any time that the president or anyone else talks about him, he will use it to try to inflate himself and make himself waft up. Look, I mean, I don't think we've ever seen such a major city as New York run by a guy whose CV shows that he was a failed rapper, employed by his mum for a bit, and then mayor of New York. That's quite a
jump.
That's that's a heck of a CV.
Well, let
not
us,
been tried before. Yeah.
Let us end with a question about your reflections on what you've seen. No one spent, you've spent an enormous amount of time in Israel. You've seen the tragedy of what's happened over the last couple years. You've also seen the stories of incredible courage and resilience. Tell us a story. Tell us about someone you encountered or some people you encountered along the way that shows the best of the Jewish people and the hope that we should all have.
Gosh, that's very hard because, as everyone here knows, I mean, Israel, particularly in the last few years, has been a country of just millions and millions of stories, all going on at the same time and at such a heat and passion. And I suppose I mentioned toward the end of the book, I think of a lot of people who I've met and spent time with in the last few years who've had a huge impact on me in lots and lots of different ways. I mentioned earlier the heroes of the IDF, and they can't be mentioned enough. It's extraordinary seeing them at work. I think when I was last here with you, I think we gathered here before the first anniversary of the 7th of October, and after that I was in. I mentioned this to somebody earlier. I was in Israel during Sukkot when the news came through that Sinwar had been killed in Rafah, and I went to Rafah the next day with the battalion who had killed him, and many extraordinary things from that. By the way, just two things, if I may. One is that some of you will know that that battalion, known as the Bizlach, young soldiers, and it seemed that, again, Ron might correct me on this or have information that I don't have, it's very likely, but the young men who killed Sinwar and the men with him were not in uniform on October the 7th, 2023. And I think this is a remarkably powerful fact. Imagine that. This man, Sinwar, who said to the crowds in Gaza in 2018, go and invade and tear the hearts out of the Jews. He created not just the generation of Jews who rose up, but the person who sent him to his death. He made them. He created unwittingly the generation of heroes who saw him off. That is one of many stories. I just add another one quickly. For me, as well as the extraordinary men and women of the IDF, I think of all of the remarkable citizens of Israel who need to be mentioned as well. There was that unit, I mentioned this in my book, was unfortunate enough to have been involved in the incident where, you'll remember, 3 hostages were killed in Gaza in December 2023. And I relay in the book that the mother of one of those hostages sent a message to the men in the unit because she knew how down they would be on this, because many lives were ruined that day. And she said to them, I love you, I don't blame you, be strong. We need you to be strong. And the day after Sinwar was killed in Rafah, somebody from the unit played me the message they just got from the same mother, who said to them, you see, I told you, you had to be strong, and you did the job you needed to do, and you killed the enemy of Israel. Now this is a remarkable woman. And Israel, when it's been tested in the last couple of years, has been filled with just millions of remarkable stories. Can I finish on a slightly poetic note, but one that's been much on my mind? One of the blessings of my life in recent years is that I probably have got more rabbis in my life than anyone has a right to have. And I probably go to synagogue more often than some of you. But I mention this only because I get to learn a lot from the exchanges I have the privilege of having in my life. And a few weeks ago, I was in Baltimore, and I was doing a fundraiser for the kibbutz near Oz, which is a kibbutz that was very badly attacked on the 7th of October, and they're rebuilding. And it's a wonderful thing to see, and anyone who can support them, please do. And we had 2 families who are going back to the kibbutz, and they're rebuilding. A young family, and also a family included an 80-year-old who had been taken hostage. He's going back to the community. Anyhow, I was talking with this man who was a former hostage and one of my rabbis, and we got talking about the Torah, and specifically we mentioned the book of Ecclesiastes, which, as you all know, has a famous and resonant passage that to everything there is a season, a time for everything upon the earth. And the rabbi and I got talking about this thing that I've always known